Hello, this is Chocolate the Bear. So we got three more classes to go over. The last three I would denote as the support classes. And so we have the main three power classes, which are Soldier, Demo, and Heavy. Then the main pick or killing or pick classes, which is Scout, Sniper, and Spy, which leaves the three support classes, which are Pyro, Engineer, and Medic. So a lot of people would think that Pyro would be a damaging kind of killing class, but unfortunately for the Pyro, he just doesn't have a way to do so. He actually does have kind of a way to do so, but I'll get to that in a minute. The reason the Pyro doesn't have a way to kill is because he doesn't deal enough damage. If you're close enough with someone, or to someone with the flamethrower, it does about 20 damage a shot, which is a good bit of damage. But it's a problematic number because it's less than the Heavy. The Heavy can deal 50 damage a shot at point blank. And also it has to be at a pretty decent range. Like I don't even think I could set those barrels on fire from here. Maybe I could. I should mention that the flames do go in the direction that you're traveling to. So if I was trying to set those barrels on fire, I could just move forward a bit and light them on fire. But overall, you get out damaged by pretty much every power class in the game. Even probably Scout could out damage you. What the Pyro does do is he deals damage while moving. The flames go in the direction you're moving. If you're running forward, they'll also go forward. And you can chase people down pretty well with them. Like the Heavy, of course, you get a huge movement penalty. Soldier, he is the movement penalty. He's the slowest class in the game, along with the Heavy. And then Demoman, Demoman's not that good at close range. So if you're running at people, and they don't have like a way to get back, you can sometimes kill people. You get out damaged, but there are cases where the speed that Pyro has does matter a lot, you know? It's not as good as a Scout, and it's not as much damage as a Heavy. So he's just kind of somewhere in the middle, and it's a middle that you just don't want to be in. The good thing about the Pyro, though, he does have another piece of utility. He has an Air Blast. So along with his continuous burst of flames, he has the Air Blast. The good thing about the Air Blast is it pushes back all enemies, and it reflects all projectiles. So this is where Pyro kind of becomes a support class. So pushing back all enemies includes enemies that are uber charged. So if you're Pyro, there's an ubered enemy right here. You just push him back. He tries to push you again. You push him back. You know, you can waste a whole uber as a Pyro pretty easily sometimes. And then reflect all projectiles. You can it not only reflects projectiles, but it makes them mini crit projectiles. So if a soldier fires a rocket at me, I see the rocket coming at me, I reflect it, it hits him, and then he not only takes the regular rocket damage, he also takes the mini crit rocket damage. So it will be, mini crits are 1.3 times as much damage with no damage drop off. I've said that a lot of times, but I feel like I should repeat it for each video. So Pyro can kill people. The rockets, if he's able to reflect a rocket, if he's able to reflect some pipe bombs from a Demoman, he can also notably reflect medic crossbow arrows and sniper bow and arrows, which are also good ways of killing people. You know, you can get kills as him, but the problem with that is you are reliant on other people shooting at you to be able to deal that damage. So that's also not a reliable source of damage for Pyro. So he's got 2 unreliable sources of damage with the flamethrower. What else does he have in his kit that can deal damage? So his default primary is a shotgun, which shotguns are good. They're decent. It's weird though because he's got a flamethrower and a shotgun. So which one do you use at close range? He's got the same ones as a soldier, with the reserve shooter, panic attack, and regular shotgun. But he's got a flamethrower. So when do you use a shotgun? I do want to say the shotgun damage output is better, but in general you'll be using flare guns, which just shoot a flare and set people on fire and deal a bit of damage. And these deal like 30 damage, pretty good. And each flare gun has its own unique attributes. Speaking of unique attributes, I should mention that Pyro, along with his medium speed, actually does have a passive. One of the only classes in the game to have a passive. I guess the other 2 support classes do technically have a passive as well. But Pyro cannot be set on fire. So normally this would set me on fire, but because I'm the Pyro doing it, I don't take damage. So so the Pyro has 3 flare guns to choose from, which are all pretty useful. And he does get mobility from this one specifically, which is kind of makes it very fun to use. Lastly, he's just got a standard melee weapon. So yeah, the Pyro, he's more of a support class, and he becomes even more of a support class with his other weapons. So if you're the Pyro, you generally want to be playing next to a medic. I should mention that each of these flames is a projectile, so it moves and then it lingers, and the lingering effect is really good for finding spies. So if I do this, I'll find any spy that's in this area. So if I just like circle around real fast, I'll cover a lot of ground with my fire. This is really useful for protecting your medic. If you're near a dispenser or something, you can have this out. You can have this fire effect for a really long time. Along with playing near your medic, you can protect him from any enemy Ubers. And most importantly, you can protect him from incoming projectiles. So Pyro, he's really a teamwork kind of class. He can still get kills with his flamethrower. He can get kills with his flare gun. But in general, it's more about teamwork with Pyro. And now let's get on to his weapons. So for the Pyro, he's got a few main flamethrowers. We're going to start with the back burner. So it has really high air blast costs, but it deals extra damage from behind, critical hits. So 3 times as much damage. You can kind of shred people from behind. If you're able to sneak up on someone with that, you pretty much instantly kill them. It makes your air blast cost 50 ammo, so you only get 4 of them, which can be problematic if you are just playing support. But still a fun weapon. I'd say it's one of his worst weapons, honestly. Just because the air blast costs so much, but still really fun to use. Degreaser, it makes it so that you switch faster. It makes it so that your afterburn does less damage, but you can switch weapons faster. I'll get on to why that's important in a minute as Pyro. He does have a little bit of combo going on with his weapons. So Degreaser is a really cool weapon to use. And then the regular flamethrower, it takes 20 metal. I should also mention the air blast cost is increased by 5 for the Degreaser. Normally it costs 20 ammo, but Degreaser costs 25, so you get 8 air blasts instead of 10. Not a significant amount, but still can matter in some cases. Next up, we got the 2 important ones. So Flog. Flog makes it so that you have no air blast. And like I said, air blast is a really good tool to use. It's a lot of utility that you have for your team. So what Flog does, though, is after you deal enough damage with any of your weapons, it can be with any of your weapons, actually, it might just be fire-related weapons. It might actually just be flare guns. I'm not too sure about that. I don't use this weapon. But after you deal enough damage, you get a few seconds of crits. And I said Pyro's not really good in terms of dealing damage. If you have crits, you deal a ton of damage. So basically the idea is you spam with like your flare gun for a bit, then you get crits. And then you go to town. If your medic has an Uber, he'll probably even Uber you. And then last up, the Dragon's Fury. So Dragon's Fury, the air blast costs 5. And it has a longer cooldown. So you get a total of 8 air blasts. I think that's the right math. Yeah, 8. You get a total of 8 air blasts, and each shot that you take costs 1. So these kind of shoot fireballs instead of regular targets. So you actually do lose utility with this in the ability to check for spies, and you also get a little bit of less air blast, but as much as the degreaser. What this weapon does do is, even though it starts shooting slowly, and these fireballs only deal a little bit of damage, they deal triple damage, it actually deals triple damage, I believe, and not critical hits, so you can still crit with this weapon. 300% damage if you consecutively hit someone, and then it also increases your fire rate. So if you continue hitting someone, you can deal a lot of damage. In general, though, this weapon's worse than a rocket launcher. It does have its air blast, so you can 1v1 people pretty well. And it does more damage than like a regular flamethrower, but just you can't spy check as easy with it. And it's weird because you also air blast slower. You end up being able to air blast like at the same speed if you do hit someone with it. But it's weird because it still has about the same range as a flamethrower. So Dragon's Fury, it's a really interesting weapon because you'll probably end up getting more kills, but at the same time, I don't want to say it's better. I don't know. It's just an interesting weapon. So next up, we got the Secondaries. I already went over all the shotguns. You know what they all do from the soldier. I don't really need to touch on them. There are 4 different types of flare guns. First off, the Man Melter. The projectiles move faster, so they're easier to hit. And you get critical hits if you extinguish teammates with it. So if there's a Pyro that is constantly just setting your teammates on fire and then leaving them to burn, it's an okay weapon. At the same time, it's just like such a weird weapon. I don't even. It's just not good. It also doesn't require ammo. I want to say the fire rate is slower, but I'm not even sure about that. It's just a really weird weapon. But it is a flare gun, kind of cool. So then you have the primary flare gun. So the first flare gun, the basic flare gun, does not explode. So the second one, you saw me getting some movement off of it. This one, you can't get any movement off of. But what it does do is it always crits against burning players. So this is where Degreaser comes in. You hit someone, then you fire this, and then they take 90 damage instantly. This normally does 30 damage. You hit a burning player, it does 90. Just a nice little pop of damage. If you hit someone twice with this flare gun, the first one will do 30. They'll be set on fire. You can hit someone again for 90. This one, it doesn't give you the movement that the Degreaser does, but it's not the most important. So this one is probably honestly one of the better ones. Honestly, all of these flare guns are like probably the top tier pyro choices. Next up, we got the one that I was using originally. So this is the Detonator. So when you use it, you can hit right click and explode it midair, and this explosion will cover a little bit of extra ground. If it also hits a surface, it also explodes. So when I was jumping there, I didn't even need to hit the button, but I do it instinctively. Speaking of which, if you're holding both buttons, it will explode right in your face. So you can always just jump off of anything. You don't need anything present. And it gives you a nice burst of movement. The difference between this is it doesn't crit, but it does mini crit. So it does a little bit of extra damage against burning players, but crits are 3 times as much damage, and mini crits are only 1.3 times as much damage. So, and then last up we got the Scorch Shot. And the Scorch Shot is annoying. It what it does is you can't explode it in midair. You can see it does have a bit of an explosion though. It's a very small explosion. You can see I'm not even hitting myself right here, but right here I will. The explosion helps you set people on fire. And it's, if you hit an enemy, then it won't only set them on fire, but after a second it will drop down and explode. And it also deals many crits versus burning players, just like the Scorch Shot. So the initial shot does its damage, then it drops down and explodes and does extra damage. It does have it does deal 35% less damage than the Scorch Shot, but it does some work. If you're just running the Flog, which was the one that gets crits after you deal enough damage, the Scorch Shot is usually the one to do it with, unfortunately. And then we have the 2 weird secondaries. So first we get the Gas Passer, and the Gas Passer is useless. You can see I don't even have it right now. It's one of the only, it is the only chargeable item that you don't, well, excluding the banners. It's the only chargeable throwable that you don't get from lockers. I can't get it. And after it's done charging, you throw it and it sets people on fire that take damage after being in its radius. Which is weird. Being set on fire doesn't do enough damage to justify this item. I will say it does charge faster if you are dealing damage. So if you're somehow getting away with dealing damage with a flamethrower, which I already said is a very unreliable source of damage, then you can charge this pretty fast. And I will say it's a throwable like the Mad Milk and Girardi, but the radius is larger. And it lingers a bit. You can see it kind of stays on the ground for a bit. At the same time though, all it does is set people on fire. And it's harder to get than the Mad Milk and Girardi. So don't use it ever. It might be the worst weapon in the game. Because the Pyro secondary slot, using those flare guns, really good. And losing them for nothing is terrible. So last up we got the Jetpack. The Jetpack, so after using it, you get 2 charges with it. You can kind of just like go to town with it. You can see I can use both charges pretty much in a row. And they recharge after a bit. But it takes away your ability to have a secondary, and the secondary is like the main way that the Pyro deals damage. So the idea is you go in with this, and then you deal damage with your flamethrower, which is just good for getting close to people, but at the same time you get out damaged in a lot of scenarios, and you're very loud while flying over, and people can see you usually. So what's the point of it? I'm like saying it's a bad weapon, but it does have a place in the game. It allows this Pyro class to bomb in, and bombing in is essentially when demos or soldiers jump in to kill the medic. So now a double class bomb, or I guess sack would be the right word for it, can now be 3 classes. So in Pro TF2, there will commonly be a strat where the defending team will take a very defensive position, but they can't just sit and spawn, and if their medic sits and spawn, they'll just all die without them. So the defending team tries to start off to protect their medic, and the attacking team will sometimes send the soldier, the pyro, and the demoman, all just instantly jumping the medic in a suicide jump, and hopefully they can make him use his Uber, or even better would be kill him. And the pyro, like I said, he's not good at it, but just having an extra person there, an extra person that they have to kill, and maybe even just someone that can get a very lucky reflect and kill the medic with, it's very useful. It's a really good thing. And that's the use for the jetpack. It's not going to be used outside of that, but it's useful. It has a place in the game. So, last up, we have the melee weapons, and Pyro has very interesting melee weapons. So first off, you never want to use the base melee weapon, because the third degree is better. The third degree makes it so that if you hit a player that is connected to a medi beam, then both the medic and the player that was hit will take damage. So say I hit a soldier, and there's a medic healing him, I hit the soldier like normal, and I also hit the medic. If I hit a medic and he's healing a soldier, I think I also hit both of them in that scenario. So it's purely better than the default, which I believe that this is the only weapon that is a straight upgrade to anything, to the default. Next up, Hot Hand. You gain a speed boost with an enemy hit. It also has a double hit, but you're not going to be hitting people with your melee as a pyro, so don't use it. Sharpened Volcano Fragment. It sets people on fire, but it does less damage. So there are actually better ways to set people on fire at close range as pyro, namely being your primary weapon. This weapon's useless. This weapon is like just such a dumb weapon. I can't say it's the worst weapon in the game because I just called Gas Passer the worst weapon in the game, but it's just dumb. Don't use it. Neon Annihilator. It can remove sappers, which is really good, and it gets 100% critical hits versus wet players. Let me tell you, there's no water in this game. There's like hardly any, so don't go for that. There's like very, very few maps with water, and enemies are not commonly found in the water. Mad Milk and Girardi do count as wet, so you can deal critical hits to those players, but in general it's just 20% less damage to players. So remove Sapper though, that's an interesting note. The problem is that this weapon also removes Sappers. So it does less damage to players, but can deal extra damage to buildings, which Sappers count as buildings, and remove Sappers. So this can one-hit Sappers, and because this does 20%, this does normal damage, it actually can't one-hit the Sappers. So Homewrecker is better than Neon Annihilator. Don't use Neon Annihilator. So first up, we've got bad, better than normal, useless, better than normal, useless, useless, good, and then last up we got the Power Jack. I think that's, oh no, we still got two more. Power Jack, it makes you run faster. So the Homewrecker is really good because if your NG dies and then his buildings get sapped, you can unsap them. And this is another reason that Pyro is a support class. You can just unsap them for him. It's really nice. Power Jack lets you move faster. This will be a pretty common one. It makes it so that you take more damage while you have the weapon out, but pretty much you carry this and then you get to the front line and then you just have a normal thing out. So just an extra bit of mobility. Mobility is really important in this game. This is a really top tier weapon, honestly. I'd be crazy if any other class in the game had this. It's only 15% extra speed, but it's really noticeable. You also get health on kills, which you're not going to be really getting kills with this, so don't worry about that. So last up, so top tier, which means that third degree, not good. Unfortunate for third degree. It's better than the default. So Back Scratcher, this is a fun one. It deals extra damage, and you get extra health from health packs, but you get less healing from healers. So if your medics are good, and you have medics, don't use this. If you have even like decent medics, don't use this. 75% extra health is or 75% less health is really bad. So in general, you don't want to use this. If there are no medics, though, this is just a straight upgrade to the default. If you have no medics on your team, this is like crazy. You get extra healing from health packs too. So yeah, Back Scratcher is worth considering. Probably still gets outclassed by the Power Jack because you get to move faster, but it's worth considering sometimes. Also, in any game where there's like semi-good players, there's going to be a medic. Medic's too good. So, and then Extinguisher. This is the last one. So this is another combo item for the Degreaser. It does extra damage against burning players. So it does less damage normally, and you pull it out slower. But if you hit a burning player, you deal extra damage. And I want to say it crits against backs, but I don't see that. I guess they removed that stat. Yeah, so it mini crits burning targets, and it deals damage equal to the amount of afterburn they have, which I should mention that I believe all the flare guns always deal full afterburn. So say you stun lock someone with a scorch shot, you knock them up with the initial hit of a scorch shot, then you run at them, maybe you even jump at them using the scorch shot, if it can fire that fast. You get the full damage bonus, and it deals a good bit of damage. In general, though, the Power Jack and Home Wrecker are just better, so use those. So, Pyro, he's got a good bit of options. All of his flamethrowers are like pretty viable. And then all of the flare guns are good. Man Melter is questionable. But then for his melee weapons, you're either using Power Jack or Home Wrecker. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. Pyro, I already know that this video went a little bit over time in terms of the other video. But these support classes are really complicated because you have to understand why they're support classes. And Pyro especially is a weird one. Not something that a lot of players would call a support class. But he is, I would say. So I can already say medic video, engineer video, they're going to be even longer. Engineer video, I might split up into 2. Medic video might not be longer. But anyway, thanks for watching. Can't wait to finish out this series. Goodbye.